calling in from the Waffle House. Wait, it's closed? Everyone
Waffle
run.
House isn't
Run
closed.
for your life!
Why would
I am
Denny's
so
be
confused.
closed? What is this?
Have you never heard of the Waffle House
Did I
Index?
freeze?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I froze. Smiling all creepy.
Yeah, you know,
We're off to a great start. We're off to a great
This
start.
is
Hi,
great.
America.
Hello, everybody.
I think I need to buy a new webcam. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, I've been
Welcome-
telling you that for
man.
like 4 months.
No, it's been
Welcome back
longer
to
than
Why
that.
do I listen to you?
Welcome back to the McFlippin' Game Room.
Yes.
McFlip it.
The
And,
McFlippin'.
I think.
I'm gonna come up with a new stupid way to describe the game room every
Or a bunch
episode.
of fucking assholes.
I mean, every
No.
way to describe
just
us
to
is
make
stupid.
you, just to make all of you, and especially you, angry as fuck.
Who are you pointing at?
Our audience.
We don't
Oh.
have an audience. No one's gonna listen to this when we're dead.
I'm the audience. Fuck you.
That is true.
You kind of peaked there, sweetheart, and we missed your audio a bit.
Oh, that's fine. I said I'm the audience. Fuck you.
So, speaking of our audience,
Oh no, are there questions?
no questions this time.
No questions?
No.
Yeah,
'cause
I don't
you
think
hate
anybody
I-
has any questions
I'm gonna have
about
to
us
start.
anymore.
I'm gonna have to start asking Flora for questions because
Yeah.
I know she'll have stuff to ask. For sure.
So here's what I have, which is very instrumental in what I'm going to be, I guess, trying to bring to the podcast this week. 2 shout-outs. Very big events happening. By the time this podcast comes out, congratulations to Aiden for graduating from high school.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, no
Aiden.
Aidens.
Yeah, that's Steve. I think you met Aiden when he finished his freshman year of high school in the before times. You know,
Yeah.
before COVID hit.
The before
I almost
times.
feel like he was younger, but maybe I'm misremembering.
That's
Yeah,
how time
he-
works, Steve.
Yeah.
He was younger than the before times.
No. I'm
We
saying he
all
was
were.
younger than I was saying he was younger than a freshman. I thought maybe he was in middle school, but I mean I
Oh.
could be wrong. I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah,
congrats
he-
to Aiden.
Yeah. So, on top of that, and honestly, that would have been the big congratulations if not for what happened this past weekend. Congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Sywinski, Evan and Becca, on their new marriage. I'm very proud of them both. I was
Mazel
honored.
tov.
I was honored to be
Yeah.
part of the wedding party.
Yeah.
It was a really good ceremony and reception. It was a blast. So congratulations to both of them. And may they have nothing but happiness. I'm sure that in the next 5 seconds, they'll hear nice words of encouragement from Vicky and Tino, Jewish words of encouragement from Dave, and warnings about misery from Steve.
Yeah. You really shouldn't have done it, but whatever.
Wow, all right.
Mazel tov, I guess.
I don't know you
After
guys
that-
personally, but I really hope that one of y'all is a healer and the other one is a tank.
I mean,
Rebecca's the tank.
That's
I
fair.
meant-
and the healer.
For sure.
I mean, what can any of us say? But your relationship is dynamite.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. You know, Dynamite's going to tie into the topic that we have tonight.
Uh-oh.
Sort of.
47
Hey.
acting
Oh, are we
is
talking
Tino
about
podcast.
mining operations in the
Hey,
Balkan
Tino.
region, Steve?
Tino, do you have a
No,
kid you're
no.
not telling us about for those fucking dad jokes?
No, but I am an uncle, so that's close enough.
Yeah.
I mean, so am I. And the worst
Uncle
I've
Joe-
done.
I think Uncle jokes just have a little bit more profanity, you know?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. That's what I was gonna say. I'd repeat
Yeah, well,
them,
he's
but not in
6
this
months
podcast.
old, so you know what? I'm not going to use profanity.
That didn't stop
You
me,
could.
and I nearly regretted it. And I know my brother and sister-in-law don't watch this podcast. I'm fine telling this story.
Tell
6
us,
months.
please.
Kids have no permanence at 6 months. They're
Yeah,
not even going to remember
except
anything you
my-
say.
Except my nephew is like 7 months, and apparently he's starting to imitate
that
the
one
sounds.
month made all the difference.
Yeah, no, apparently it
Actually,
did because
yes.
he's starting to imitate the sounds he hears around him.
Oh, no.
And there's this
But
thing
does he?
where,
But can he understand what they actually mean?
no, he's just mimicking, which is why when I said the word badass, he started just repeating badass, badass.
Oh Oh!
Yeah.
So you're basically outing yourself as a bad influence on your nephew.
I mean, we knew that
I stood
already.
before his crib after he was born, and I swore to be the worst influence I possibly could.
Oh gosh, am I gonna have to call CYS?
No.
Look, Tino, after what I just went
You
through
mean
at my
CPS?
job, that was,
I
that's
guess
the last
in-
thing I want to hear about right now is CYS.
I think in Pennsylvania it's called CYS, but
Yeah, Children and
Oh.
Youth Services. Don't ask me why I know that.
Because you're
why
a
do you
lawyer.
know that, Will?
Yeah. Because I dealt with them more in the span of a month than anyone should ever have to.
Lawyering 101.
Oh, God.
Fun
Will,
times.
Will, are you a safe child?
I'm not. I'm never safe.
Sorry, man.
It's okay. Things
Oh,
happen.
shit.
Oh, that's all
I'm
right.
sorry. The one that probably that was child. Thinking about the fact that no one here is under 30.
Yeah. So, Steve, what's the
You can
topic
stay
for
out there,
tonight?
David.
The topic that I want to talk about is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And,
Oh, is it Flora?
Absolutely not.
Wow.
Yay!
I want to talk about, and I've talked about little tidbits here and there on the podcast, but I love K-pop a lot. It's been my primary hobby for many years now. I know, all the news that comes out. I know all the new releases that come out.
What's your What's your favorite flavor of it? I like the strawberry cake pops from Starbucks myself. Oh, you said K-pop. I thought you
Yes.
said cake pop.
Cake pops are very good.
Yeah.
But no, I'm talking
Really,
about K-pop.
I enjoy good French vanilla in the morning. Oh, you said K-pop, not K-pop.
So anyway, it
wait,
is
what'd
it
you
is
say
my
about
primary
Johnny
hobby.
J-pop?
It's what I love to do. Oh, you guys stop! I'm trying to do something here.
Mom, I'm trying to do something here.
Anyway, if you look behind me on these shelves, there's tons and tons of albums from various artists that I've collected over the years. It's something that I really like to do. So I wanted to talk about the history of it, the changing trends over time, and kind of where we are at now and what the future may hold for it. And I just want to start out with asking you all, I'm sure you've at least heard of it, but do you know anything about it?
Yeah? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. I know that song, and I think that's about it.
You mean, yeah? Are you talking?
Whatever.
Okay.
It's that one you played for me where it's like the split personality woman singing to the guy.
Oh, yes. That's, yeah. That's a good one.
So I'll say I know that it exists, but I don't really know a whole lot about it, and so because of that, I don't really understand why it's as big as it is. Because the most, the closest thing to K-pop that I've had any exposure to is a little bit of J-pop, and really most of the J-pop that I know is really just the soundtrack from Macross Frontier. So,
Right.
So I get that. Okay, some people might find K-pop artists and they'd be like, I like this person's music, but it seems like there's a lot more going on than just listening to music.
It reminds me of the boy band craze from the 90s.
Yeah, that's a very good comparison, I would say, and it's still prevalent even to today's K-pop. And I'm going to talk about the different styles and the different trends, and I think in the very beginning it was very similar to like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and 98 Degrees, those types of groups. So. And you're right, Tino. J-pop and K-pop share a lot of similarities in terms of the music style and how they interact with their fans. But there are also some differences too that I'll touch on. But first, I want to first start with giving a little bit of a history lesson as to how K-pop came about. So in the very beginning, I'm going back all the way to the Korean War, all the way back. So.
All right.
So after the Korean War, as you can imagine, Korea was sort of in, structural and economic ruin. And the government got really, really scared of any outside influence, and it just kind of closed themselves off from the world for several decades. And so there wasn't a whole lot of an outside influence or culture being introduced to Korea. And it was like that for a long time. Now, fast forward, several years, the U.S. military had an occupation in Korea since the Korean War ended. And bringing the American culture with them, the military, I mean, Korea was starting to get a feel of like how Western civilization, what their culture is like, what type of fashion trends they have, and even their music, because pop music was starting to, make some waves on the Western world, like in the 70s and 80s, that kind of thing. So around 1988, that was when the international travel restrictions were lifted. They weren't able to travel internationally until that time. They didn't even give out Korean passports until the very early 80s. And it was reserved for people that were wealthy or diplomats to travel outside the country and do whatever they have to do. But in 1988, the restriction was lifted, and now anybody could leave the country. They could get passports and they could travel.
So until then, North Korea and South Korea really weren't all that different from each other in terms of being able to actually travel to other places.
Yeah, in a way. And it's actually really obvious if you look at old pictures of Korea. They wore like this type of like white outfit that's very similar to kind of like a martial arts outfit, sort of.
Yeah,
but a little flashier.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. It's like and I can't remember the name of it, but like that like very specific style of Korean dress for women.
Yeah, it's
like,
they call that a yeah, they call it a hanbok.
Okay.
But I think that was starting to go away. They had something that was a little less complicated, because it takes a lot to put it on, kind of like how a kimono is.
Right.
So they made something that was a little, the material was lighter, so in the hot summer it wasn't as bad, like a yukata type of thing. But It was their own style that was modeled a little bit around a hanbok. But yeah, that's basically how it is. So so if you look at back in old pictures, they wore that type of attire for a long time, up until they were starting to be able to travel and see the different styles of clothing. So now at this point, I'm going to talk about the music part now. Now that the history part is kind of over, and they're starting to see the Western culture influences starting to creep into Korea a little bit. Up until this point, there was one type of genre of music that was very popular in Korea. It was called Trot music. It's really hard to explain what it is, but it's basically like a very repetitive rhythm and has a certain vocal inflection that is very indicative to that style of music. And that was the dominant music for almost 100 years, up until present day. It's actually kind of resurfaced as popular music a little bit, but basically when K-pop took over, that style of music basically went away. So Trot music is an indigenous style. I would say so. It's not like the folk music in the sense that you might think. It's I would suggest that just look it up after the podcast if you're interested, because it is a very unique style of music. So when K-pop came on, it was very different, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. So now in 1992, this is kind of like the pivotal point, and what people think that K-pop is like where it's actually started. So in 1992, there was a group called Seo Taiji and the Boys. It was one guy, his name was Seo Taiji, and he had I think it was 2 or 3 other guys that they made this song. It was called I Know, and they released it, and they did some appearance on this music competition show on TV, where like a bunch of different artists would go on and do their song, and they would get rated by the audience and a panel of judges. So after that song was performed, everyone hated it. Like, they thought it was absolute garbage. Because you got to understand that Trot music was like the music, and I Know was more of like a dance pop kind of song. A lot of like instrumentals in the background, and it was just like a good beat that you could kind of like dance to. And Korea was like, "What the fuck is this? This is absolutely terrible."
The
So
Korean
they-
Simon Cowell was like, "What on earth do you think you're doing?"
Yeah, they were like, dude, and I know because I saw the clip, and they had like the judges talking about it afterwards, and they were basically like, I don't know why you decided to release this, but this is not good.
I'm imagining
So
like
they were
a,
just like laughed off the show.
I'm like
yeah.
imagining a Back to the Future Johnny Be Good thing where everybody in the 50s like, the fuck is he doing?
Oh yeah,
God, yeah.
It just like
your
felt
kids
like
are gonna
a
love it.
yeah, it just felt like a different point in time for them. They're like, is this from the future? Like, what is this music? So anyway, they came in dead last, and they were laughed off the show. But what was surprising was the youth of Korea actually really liked it, because they were a new generation. They didn't really care about the Trot music, and they were like rebellious, and they wanted something to like go against their parents, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was super popular among kids, and they sold a lot of albums, like a whole lot. So because of them, other groups started to mimic their style of music, and they say that was kind of like the birth of K-pop. Those guys releasing that song, and every single song after that has been influenced in some way by these guys. So that's kind of like my part one.
Okay.
So anyone have questions or comments?
All right. So, when do we get to Psy and Gangnam Style?
Oh, we're gonna get there. Trust me.
Okay.
we're gonna get there.
So, I guess so. So if you have this like, I guess this budding new genre in Korea, is it something where if you look at their song, because I haven't seen this video clip that you're talking about, is this something where if you look at their song today, one, you can clearly see that this is like kind of like the origin story for like K-pop, like Marvel Studios would make a movie and this is what they would show on the big screen to show that this is where K-pop really kind of came from. And two, was their song like legitimately good or bad, or was it not liked on the show because it wasn't Trot music?
I think it's a little bit of both. I personally like the song. However, there's a lot of people that would make the argument that it's actually not that great of a song. So if I were to say, like, if you were looking at the music that is released now versus those guys back in '92, I don't think you could ever make the correlation, because we've gone through so many iterations and changes over time that it's almost unrecognizable now.
So in a sense, it's almost like if you were to look at rap music from like the 80s, for example, and then compare it to rap music today, it's like they're both rap music, but it's two very different styles of it.
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah.
I think right now K-pop very much mimics American music, the music of today. Although I would say they're like maybe one generation behind. So maybe the music that was popular in America the last like 3 years ago is now the style of music that they're trying to mimic in Korea.
Okay.
They really love to steal American music styles and genres. Like, they love to do that. And I'll get in, and and when I start part 2, I'm going to talk about like how like K-pop actually works in terms of like the flow of like from debut to like disbandment.
So that brings me to my question.
Yes.
So this initial song that showed up, was this basically just a Western style song that was like mimicking American pop, or was it something completely other than that? Because what's coming to my mind is I think the only person who would have seen this film is maybe Dave. Chungking Express had a Cantonese cover of the of Dream Lover by the Cranberries, and like that's what's coming to my head when I hear like this first K-pop song that you're talking about. But I don't know if that's anywhere in the ballpark, because that was like around the same time period. That was like 1994 when that movie came out.
Yeah. So I think the best comparison that I can make is very late 80s like R&B music.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if you look at like this is such a super weird example, but like Crisscross. Anyone remember Crisscross?
Oh my god! Holy shit!
Jump!
Really?
Jump!
I can link the music video for that song, because there is a music video, and it's wild. Number one, and you can get a feel of like what the song actually sounds like.
Okay, I'm starting to understand what you mean when you say 3 years back.
Yeah, they're always like a few years behind, and I don't know if that's just because like we're globalized now, right? They can get American music anytime.
They can, but culture doesn't really transfer at osmosis. And
yeah, I suppose
every
so.
effort we've made to speed up that process hasn't really worked. So it always takes time for stuff that's popular here to spread in other places. There are people who will always be on the cutting edge, but adoption takes time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sorry,
Man.
I just closed my my window for some reason.
I can't wait till they find out about Chug Jug.
Oh boy.
All right, so if no one else has any questions, I'll keep
Goodbye.
going.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so next I'll kind of explain the framework of how K-pop works. So K-pop has an endless amount of record labels or agencies. We like to call them agencies. And they're big and small. There's ones from like really super small companies to ones that are super huge, like BTS as an example. Their studio actually was really small at first. However, they've been acquiring other agencies over time. They actually bought a major shareholder in SM Entertainment, which is does anyone know Girls' Generation?
Yeah.
I know the name.
Yeah, so SM Entertainment is their record label, and they're absolutely huge. They've actually been around since the beginning, making music, like even Trot music. They like made that stuff before they switched to K-pop as their main focus.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, so when it comes to debuting a new artist, in the very beginning, it was very like bare bones because we didn't have the internet yet, right? The K-pop actually like started really gaining like their like steam in like the late 90s. So it took like several years to like build up to this point where like they felt comfortable with like that being their main style of music for pop music. So like around like 1997, 98, that was when they started like releasing the first like generations of groups. Now in the first generation, it was very like boy band focused. There were very few girl groups. I think there was maybe like 2 as opposed to like 6 boy groups. So it was very like male dominated. And I think it was just because that pop music, at least in the sense of like, if you think about the 90s, the main demographic was girls.
Yeah, it's very, very, very sort of in sync Backstreet Boys kind of terrain.
Yeah.
So when the girl groups came up, they blew up like Destiny's Child, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So when it comes to like the first generation and like second generation, ranging from like 97, 98 to like the late 2000s, it was mostly just advertisements on television. So they would be like, hey, a new group is about to come out and this is their debut dates and they'll be releasing this album. And then they'll like go on TV shows, like music shows. Music shows are shows that happen Tuesday through Sunday. Monday is off for some weird reason. But the way music shows work is they when someone like either debuts or releases a new album, they promote it, and the general time frame for promoting an album is like 3 weeks. So they'll do music shows for 3 straight weeks, and they'll go on each show from Tuesday to Sunday. So that's kind of like their work week, basically. So that's kind of like how their debut was back then. But now these days, it's because we have the internet. A lot of it is done through like social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all that stuff. They put out advertisements. They have like photo shoots where they have like teaser images of like their outfits and like what their music video will look like. And they'll give like a little teaser of like what the title track will sound like and what the rest of the album will sound like. Just like very short clips.
Now, do these K-pop idols, do they control their own social media presence, or is this something that's like kind of handled by their agency?
Well, actually, that's a very good point. Up until very recently, they had no say in terms of what they could post. Everything was done by the agency. However, now they're getting a little bit more freedom in the sense that they can take their own selfies or take their own pictures of their fellow members and post it on their social media platform. But that's a very recent development, maybe like the last year or two. Yes, Vicky.
Oh, hi, yeah. So wasn't there like a situation with K-pop idols, like social media, where she got stalked or possibly murdered or something? And something about her having a significant other, like, is what pushed the guy?
Yes. I know who you're talking about. I think. She actually, I mean, it's really sad to say this, but she actually committed suicide.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah. This was
Isn't social media great, folks?
Yeah, well, actually, the story, not to go off on a tangent, but to answer your question, yes, that did happen, and the stalker was actually her former boyfriend. He still had keys to her house, and
that's a bad thing.
And they got in this huge like argument one night, and he like assaulted her, not sexually, but like they had like physical altercations, both of them. And that kind of like really screwed with her mental health. And also she lost another friend to suicide like a year before that. So like she was like really like on off the deep end. And yeah, unfortunately she did take her own life. So yeah, that was maybe like 2019. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember
not that long ago.
Yeah, because I remember hearing about it, and for some reason I feel like it's like the guy found her, or at some point, like through something on her social media. I might be conflating two different things, but yeah, no, that's gotta be rough. I mean,
he threatened to like leak like nude pictures and stuff like that. Yeah, it was a really messy situation.
I mean. I guess that kind of ties into something that I sort of know, not necessarily about K-pop, but like I remember hearing a story I don't want to say too long ago, but it must have been at least a few years at this point, where there was some woman who was part of like a J-pop group, and she got kicked out because they found out that she had a boyfriend.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
Oh yeah,
what
that's
the hell?
that happens all the time.
Yeah, it's a weird purity thing, and it's
Right.
because it's quote unquote ruins the image for the fans, that the idea that you're not a
What is it?
not
What
a
was it in
virgin.
wrestling? Kayfabe or something like that?
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Is that carried over into K-pop as well to that degree, or is this something where it's
Yes.
like, all right,
Yes, they have a strict no dating policy. However, it is a pretty well known fact that they do date like secretly, like, but it's like not in the way that you think. It's more like they'll date other artists and they'll like pass each other in the hallway and they'll like touch hands as they go by. That's like weird shit.
So
like
that's their dating, I guess.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
speed
Well,
dating.
that's
That's
the only way. That's the only way they can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's a lot easier to extract money out of simps, I guess. Is that what's going on? Is that like
that is
the reason
Tino,
for it?
that is older than fucking time itself.
Yeah,
That is not unique to K-pop or J-pop.
Well,
right.
I'm
wondering if that's a deliberate choice by the agencies to be like,
Oh,
okay,
absolutely.
yes,
pay more.
yeah,
People put more money.
absolutely.
Simp is eternal, dude.
Absolutely.
Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme.
And I think
for my feet.
And I think it's really bad now, especially because of social media. And I'll get into that when we get to like the current, because I do want to talk about parasocial relationships. It's very prevalent in
here we
K-pop.
go.
Oh, boy.
God.
Yeah. But that's something that's more recent. And near the end of my presentation, I'll talk about that.
So I did have a question to go back a little bit about I'm somebody who mostly listens to movie soundtracks and video game soundtracks, and if I do listen to stuff by independent artists, most of it doesn't have lyrics. So I'm kind of ignorant not just of the Korean music industry but also the American music industry. So the way that you were describing Korean K-pop artists having debuts and kind of all of this hype being built up to new albums being released or whatnot. Is there a difference? Or are there any major differences between how that works in the K-pop world and how that works in, say, the American music industry? Because, like, I don't know that Taylor Swift is coming out with a new album until somebody that I know is, talking about it. And I'm like, oh, I guess that was happening. But there's probably a hype train that leads up to that, but it probably doesn't work the same.
I'd say that in terms of what happens in the American industry compared to what I know of K and J-pop, K and J-pop have a much stronger, what I will call, manufactured line, in that, as Steve was detailing, there is literally, you can mark out the stages of a person's career. Mm-hmm. America has attempted to do things like this, except Americans being Americans, well, we can't resist telling our bosses to go fuck themselves. And somebody else will go, yeah, I like that you told your boss to go fuck themselves. Let me hire you for double the money.
So basically, in the Korean schema of things, the agency or the record label is in control way more than the artist is.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
This kind of comes in line with what I was about to talk about next, and that was the concept of comebacks. So comeback is a term that they use to describe the release of a new album. So you have your debut, which is your first album, and then when you release a new album, it's called a comeback. It's actually an old term, though. I've only really heard it in the K-pop world. I've never heard it in any other way. But when I looked up the word earlier today, because I did want to talk about it, I heard that other industries use it for some reason.
Wait, so hold on. You've seriously never heard the lyric? I think that was Eminem who did the lyric. It's like, "Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for you."
It's not Eminem. It's hold on a second.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
LL Cool J, I think.
Yeah, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years.
Don't call it a comeback. That I have heard. Yeah. So anyway, so the concept of a comeback is basically you're just releasing another album apart from your debut. So the way comebacks work is they'll market it, they'll shoot a music video, and then when it finally comes out, they'll promote it for those 3 weeks that I talked about. So the comeback cycle for any K-pop group has changed over the years. I think releases are more frequent now. And also their contracts, because they do sign contracts before they debut. And the contract basically states, like, these are the terms of your employment, like any other contract. However, it also shows how long this contract is good for. So basically, they'll say, you're going to be a group for this many years. Now, the standard amount of years used to be 7. So you would be a group for 7 years. Whether you released music or not, you were employed at that agency for them to do whatever they want you to do. Now it's more, the contracts are more fluid now. I've seen 5 years, I've seen 2.5 years. I've even seen 10-year contracts, which is super weird. But yeah, they vary now. So now when it comes to promotions and like comebacks, I see now, they used to be like you would release one album every like 6 months. Now they do it every 3 or 4.
That's a recording schedule.
Yeah, and it's actually taken a bad toll on the industry because of how overworked they are.
It probably takes a bad toll on the artists themselves. Goodness.
Yeah, because you have to understand that they need to practice everything to perfection, because that's just how K-pop is. They sell perfection. So let's say they release an album, right? And they do their 3 weeks of promotion, and then it's over. And now they have to go back in the studio, make a new album, practice all the choreography, which can take a whole month. I mean, their choreography is absolutely ridiculous. It's on another level. I mean, if you've ever seen any music video from any K-pop idol, it's absolutely insane. So it takes a long time for them to memorize the choreography to the point where it's muscle memory, So they're basically working around the clock with very little rest. And because these cycles are so short now, it's just like been really bad, to the point where we see members have to take a break because they're like having anxiety attacks, or they're just like they have an injury because of a practice that they had one day, and just like stuff like that. I mean, it wasn't like that like 4 or 5 years ago, but we're seeing it like a lot now.
God, I guess if you can't get authenticity through product, then you're going to get authenticity through expression. And by driving people to the limit of expression in the form.
I mean, it also sounds like it would be very difficult to create anything good under those circumstances, because creativity on command maybe I'm way off base with this, but that sounds very difficult to do. I mean, that's part of the reason that so many movies are bad these days, because they're like assembled by committee rather than being, dreamt up in the mind of one person. That's kind of what this sounds like, but I don't know if that's right or not.
Yeah, I agree. And I was going to talk about it about at the very end, because I do think that K-pop has gotten worse over time. And it's because that they really stifle creativity. Now it's more of a manufactured type of thing.
So basically,
it always was to an extent, but now it's like.
But now you can see the machine marks.
They're all starting to sound the same, basically.
What's that?
Are they all starting to sound the same?
Oh yeah.
Are there any groups that still kind of like get together and like take part in their own creative process?
Yes. So Girls' Generation still makes music every now and then. Let's see. Super Junior is another group. They were like a second generation group, like around the like late 2000s. They still make music periodically. They're actually releasing a new album later this month. So yeah, there's still old groups that are still around. There are some agencies that just don't let their idols go, or like they always leave the door open. Like they're not like under any contract anymore, but they kind of like are treated as like independent contractors at this point. So like they'll come back and use their resources to make something new. They'll put it out and they'll promote it, and then that's that.
Man, knowing all this, the plot line about Cheryl's manager from Macross F being the main bad guy makes perfect sense now. My goodness.
Macross has actually always touched on this thing, like even back to its original incarnation. Like some of the stuff that happened with Min-May was inspired this, because this shit has been happening since like the 80s.
Who's the real bad guys? Who's the real scum of the galaxy? Music managers.
Honestly,
Producer San is either the father figure you never had, or the complete monster who controls your life.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go into like the different generations, and then I'll talk about like where we go from here, and then that'll be at the end of my presentation. So So the first generation I want to talk about, this was like around the 1996, 1997 that I talked about earlier. So when these groups started coming out, fan culture was very different than it is now. It was very collaborative. People supported each other's groups. There wasn't really any animosity between people. And because of like limited distribution, because there was no internet at the time, or like it was still in its infancy, and there wasn't really any like social media for one. Everyone was kind of like hands off, and there wasn't really a whole lot of interaction between fans because there just really wasn't an opportunity. So that's how like fan culture was up until like from 97 to like 2005, 2006. The music style was interesting. Very similar to that I Know song. But a little bit different, a little more poppy. The way performances worked were absolutely hilarious because they always lip synced every time.
Nobody would actually sing
every time, and they lip synced to the CD track. They didn't re-record a live version. They just played their CD in the background. Oh, yeah.
So what happened if it skipped?
Oh, you're fucked. You're just fucked.
Just hope there isn't an earthquake, I guess. You know?
Wait, where's Millie and/or Vanilli?
Oh.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to jump ahead in your choreography. Everyone's a step off now.
Coming up, BTS featuring Ashley Simpson.
Oh, fuck off. Oh, God.
Old Man River.
So the way choreography was back then was also very loose, like very like smooth dance movements, not a whole lot of like complex movements, just a whole lot of like, that kind of thing, just like very simple dance movements. And songs
so like me
were
at a wedding.
Yeah, I guess. And
after how many, Will?
Enough.
Yes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And in the first generation, like slow songs and like love songs were like pretty prevalent too. Like they actively promoted like slow songs like that, which you don't see anymore. Not even close. I
love you. Let's be in the same unit when we go to war together against North Korea.
So for fashion, for the first generation, very Western. Lots of t-shirts and jeans, braided hair, some like tie-dye shirts, that kind of stuff.
Oh, summer camp.
Yeah, I mean, it was very 90s, very 90s.
Were there any groups that like, if you look at like the 90s era K-pop bands, would any of them, like, if you looked at them, be like, oh yeah, they look like they're modeling themselves after like the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC or 98 Degrees or one of those boy bands from America? Like, was that kind of the style they were trying to follow, or was it just like whatever they saw on like, TV about American culture?
I think it was kind of like what they saw on TV. Although I will say there is a little bit of overlap with Backstreet Boys. Though I don't think the style was that much the same. Though you could kind of like feel it a little bit.
So it was more of like a generalized, like copy and pasting of American fashion.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. I'd say more they grabbed the aura of American fashion and then did something in that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like put potato chips on a hot dog.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to second generation. So second generation was, like I said, around 2006 to like 2013, 2014. This was when Girls' Generation debuted. They debuted in 2007. And they were the ones that really kind of transformed the K-pop industry in terms of like how they viewed girl groups, because up until then, there were very, very few girl groups. And I'm not entirely sure what the reason is other than very blatant misogyny, but on Korea's part. But Girls' Generation just really changed the game. And it was just because their songs were so unique at the time, and their like fashion sense was very like trend setting. Like there's a certain song music video called Genie, and it's that was like when they popularized showing off legs in like performances. Like they wore very short. They wore like very short shorts and showed off.
Suddenly,
and, like,
Will is very interested.
Yeah.
Wait, what's up now?
I heard you, Will.
Yeah. And they like to show like midriffs and stuff too. That was like the first time they started doing that. So that was like the style of clothes that they would wear in performances. Also, Second Generation was the first time they started introducing a rap member, a member who would be a rapper for their song. Up until that point, they never really had like a dedicated member for that, but now they do.
Hold the phone. Are you saying that that Korea got limp biscuited?
I suppose so.
Oh,
God.
Just like Fred Dursing all across South Korea. God damn it.
I will say that like the concept of having rap in a pop song is super jarring because it's just a lot of very like, you know, there's high notes and, you know, a lot of harmonization, and then out of nowhere they just start like a rapping, and I'm like, what is this
like,
for? Who is this for?
Like, I'll tell you this from a musical perspective: rap rock itself is already a risk. Rap pop, fuck off.
Yeah,
I'm kind of morbidly fascinated, actually.
I'm
I
curious.
don't like it, honestly. I really think that K-pop could do without the rap. I've never once been like, I really like that rap part. I've never said that, and I never will say that because I think it's stupid.
Tino, take this out of context and put it in.
What?
Make him say it.
What?
I just said take it out of context and then just put it in at a very inconvenient time.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Wow. All right, so for fan culture for Second Generation, so they started getting a little more competitive, and the main reason for this is because music shows started becoming popular. They've always been around, but they weren't really like something people would actively watch. They would just find out about it later, but you know, fans started to take an interest because performances were getting better and songs were getting better. So they were interested in seeing it live on television. So, but because of how music shows work, they pick a winner for the music show at the end, and it's based off a variety of things. It's based off album sales. It's based off number of times you stream. Not as important back when there was no streaming platform. There's also a judge panel that decides, you know, and these all have different like percentages, like what goes into like who determines who is the winner for that week. And they take album sales based off like a week worth of sales. So
this sounds very cutthroat.
Oh yeah, it is. And it's really bad. It's really bad now because of social media. It's super bad.
Oh no, I imagine that I can imagine corporate agency based meme to meme combat is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Social media, like, the thing that pours gas onto every fire.
Oh yes.
Yeah. All right. So for music style, like I said, performances were getting a little more flashy, a little more complex. So that was nice. It was still like they still did a lot of like love songs, soft songs, and nothing really like, you know, sharp. If I could really say anything like that. Yeah, that was just kind of like how it was back then. As for fashion, this is actually interesting because around this time they started using outfits that like they matched each other, because up to that point everyone kind of like had their own outfit, but now everyone wears the same outfit, which is kind of, I mean, it should have been like that from the beginning.
Now, when you
whatever.
say everyone wears the same outfit, do you mean like they're all dressing in similar colors, or like is this like one of those like 1950s sci-fi movies where the aliens land and they're all in the same like jumpsuit?
No.
Oh yeah, everyone's in the same jumpsuit.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I
This is
imagine
starting-
same group, same uniform in the case here.
Yeah. It's all the same uniform. Yeah.
This
Now,
is
is
starting
this something
to sound
where like they have like a stylist just going out and buying the same clothes but in different sizes, or do they have like actual fashion labels working with them?
They have fashion labels working with them. Yeah.
Okay.
this is starting to sound less like music and more like the MLB.
Well, you know
And
what?
Tino nailed it.
You know what? I wanted to say this in the beginning, but I forgot to. But I would compare K-pop to American wrestling because the stunts are real, but the storylines are not.
Called it kayfabe.
Wait, there are storylines?
Yes.
Oh, we'll get there, and I call the right to reserve to actually talking about pro wrestling for a future podcast topic.
Because see,
yours,
because ultimately this is what K-pop boils down to, especially now. Everything that you see on TV, on SNS, social media, it's all fabricated. Everyone is playing their parts. No one acts like the way they do in real life. It's all fabricated. And it's really jarring to see as someone in my 30s. Because, as a kid, I probably would have believed stuff like that, where they're like, oh, this girl's so cute and so innocent. What a personality she has. But no, she made that personality up. It's because she's on camera. And that's what Korea does. They sell perfection.
This bitch
Wrestling
goes around
put kayfabe
knocking
down so that K-pop could pick up kayfabe.
Now, I think to some extent... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said basically, like, I tell people, if you like American wrestling and you have yellow fever, then K-pop is absolutely for you.
Wow.
So,
I mean, hell, if you like American wrestling and you have yellow fever, just watch more American wrestling. We're poaching all the good Japanese wrestlers.
so
Yeah,
I mean,
very true.
all right, so
this chick actually goes around just knocking fucking mailboxes over in the middle of the night with a baseball bat. But she's totally pure and innocent, though, guys.
I cannot wait to tell you about World Wonder's stardom.
So
well, you know what's funny, because Vicky raised a really interesting point here. Very recently, just because of like how cancel culture has been really like ridiculous lately.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whenever a new, it's been happening for a while, but whenever a new group is about to debut, people just pour over their past history and try and find anything that they did wrong in order to get them to stop from debuting, because they feel like they've been, they're trying to serve some vigilante justice or something.
now,
And it's true, and it's actually happened. Like, they've seen, like, they used to be bullies in school. They like put gum in someone's hair, like weird shit like that. They try and bring all that shit to light, and then they gotta like cancel that girl's debut because of shit that they did in middle school. And they're 18 now.
It's opposition. It's literally opposition research on pop idols.
I was going to say, I would be willing to bet good money that is not genuine, but really just nothing more than corporate sabotage by a competing label.
I mean, that is possible. I mean, BTS's label actually debuted a new girl group last month. And this was highly anticipated because it's BTS's label. They have to be good, right? Well, one of the members, it was found out that she was actually a bully in middle school. And now she's on hiatus.
A bully in middle school?
Yeah.
She said she smelled like a stinky poopy butt. That's what she did.
oh,
Yeah. Apparently, like, they like got in like a fight or something, like outside of school. And like the school had to get involved in the whole thing, and it went on a record, and then like people found out about it, and
so
Fucking shameful,
and I think like that could have been some kind of corporate sabotage. It could have. I don't know.
So to what extent is there like a market for like if you're like a label in Korea and you want to make this new group popular? Like, is there like a thing where they will hire like, I guess, companies to scrub through their own potential star social media to try to anticipate this?
There is a term for this. It's called a fixer.
This sounds like a mafia thing.
But is it is it a thing in Korea?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything that. No, I don't think so.
You'd have to find a fixer willing to scrub through fucking school records to find stuff.
A lot of this stuff is found by like people not in the industry, like some kid online. It's like they post it on social media and then it goes viral for some reason. Like it's stuff like that.
Yeah, like the most a fixer would be able to do in this context is to try and intercept it and literally offer the person who found the information money to be like, hey, don't talk about this for 5 weeks.
I will say, like, I didn't want to, like, diminish, like, bullying, like, no matter, like, the level of education, like, a middle school and stuff. I don't want you guys to interpret it that way. But I will say, if that's all they got on the chick, like, I mean, yeah, it's not great, but at the same time, she's clearly tried to improve herself since then, and we were all assholes as kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the attitude we take
you just have to understand that Korea just really wants perfection, and any kind of like blemish, so, no matter how many years ago, it's just unacceptable.
You are not allowed to be human. You are a product being put out by this company.
So
sounds like grooming.
So then, I have a few questions based on that.
You're not wrong.
So
Disney
based on
Channel.
that, I guess to what extent, like, you know, if K-pop is all about perfection, like, I can only assume that they're not really having fun with a lot of this. Like, maybe they have some fun, but you know, it doesn't seem like they are. But to what extent then would a group like, you know, like if you have like a group like BTS, which is so massively popular that like other countries lose their minds over them. Like they have a big fan base in America and Canada and Europe and all these other places. Like, are they good for K-pop as a genre, or do they detract from the genre in like because they are so wildly successful that other groups now have to be even more perfect to try to get a piece of that like BTS success?
Do you want my personal opinion?
Sure.
I think BTS is a detriment to K-pop, and here's why I think that. I think that BTS has shown the world what K-pop shouldn't be, because they got so popular, they had no choice but to go global. They couldn't just be successful in Korea anymore. So to that end, they had to change their style to accommodate the global market. Korea has a certain expectation of what style of music they like. And America, just as an example, doesn't necessarily share that sentiment. And it became very obvious when COVID happened. They started releasing English language songs as singles. I don't know if you've ever heard Dynamite on the radio. Dynamite is one of their English songs. Or maybe Butter. But they're very like Bruno Mars style songs, like that kind of shit.
Gotcha.
And Korea just really isn't down with that. And in all honesty, I feel that Korean BTS fans felt betrayed by them because of what they did. And I think K-pop has suffered because of it.
Well, that's the thing. When you make content for a global audience, you're going to lose what would make your content unique to your country and unique to your culture. And so it kind of gets dumbed down and blandified a little bit for that reason.
Yeah.
Like I think
I agree. I mean, you need to have a really big net, you know?
Yeah, that's why there was like a lot
there's no way that you could possibly please an entire global audience, because, you know, what one country likes, another country is going to hate. Like if I made a pro-China video or movie or something, well, a bunch of people in Taiwan would hate it. If I made something that was pro-Taiwan, everyone in China would hate it. So like, you know, just as an example.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I just think that BTS owed Korea a lot for their success, because they were like super like unknown for many years. They debuted in 2013. They didn't really get their success until 2016. So they went 3 whole years with not really selling a whole lot of albums, but slowly getting their success over time. But 2016 was kind of at the point where they made like basically their best album yet, and in my opinion is their best work to date. And Korea really saw and recognized that. So that was like when their success really started to explode. But it was because of Korea that, you know, gave them all that support. It wasn't necessarily America or Europe. It was Korea.
Yeah.
So for them to, like, in 2020, turn their back on Korea and focus their activities on pleasing the global audience, I would have felt hurt if I was Korean, you know?
If I'm in the marketing company if I'm in the marketing department of BTS's label,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm watching the reaction from Korean audiences, I'm already planning a Korean language album debut comeback
Mm-hmm.
to play off the sense of betrayal and to be a hey, we're coming home kind of deal.
So
Yeah, well, and I think they did that because they did release an album last Friday, which was a Korean language album. However, just a few days later, they said, we're going on a hiatus and we don't care about you anymore. So,
well, based on what you've told us so far, that hiatus had to have been planned well in advance, right?
yeah. But also I think they started running out of time for their military service. Because I think the government was starting to be like, hey, are you guys going to like do the military service or not? Because the government was going to exempt them because on grounds of that they provided significant cultural influence globally. And they do that with a lot of people. They do it with Olympians. They do it with like classical singers that have some like cultural significance or influence on the world, that kind of thing.
It's the Eastern Hemisphere's Bye Bye Birdie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're living in South Korea and you provide something that is seen, I guess, as promoting Korean culture to a significant enough degree, they will exempt you from military service.
Yes.
Yep.
So BTS was at that level.
Yes,
So,
and just so you know, the military mandatory military service is for men only. Women do not have to serve.
Okay. So then what happened where, I guess, BTS basically had the exemption? Like, how did they lose it?
Well, no, they never lost it. It's just that the government has always, left that door open. Like, you don't have to go if you don't want to. That's basically what they said. I believe they offered that in 2020.
Would it have been seen as like unpatriotic if they didn't?
Yeah, I mean that's the reason why they're going to do it because
Okay.
I mean, would you really want to like take that privilege? I mean, that would look super bad,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I can understand if you take that privilege while you're still doing the thing that, the country gave you the privilege for. Like, if you're still going around touring and making albums and everything, it's like, look, I would serve, but, by singing, I bring morale to a lot of people in not just the Korean army, but Korea as well. And you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe I should serve, but I'll admit I'm afraid. And I think the people who serve are a lot braver than me and are much more honorable. But if I could contribute to my nation this way, I'll do it. I think that'd be like a way to kind of save face a bit. But if they're, if they're going on a hiatus, you can't exactly say like, oh yeah, let me take this exemption that I got for singing and then not sing for a while. Because that would just look really bad.
Yeah, and when K-pop idols go into the military service, they're always given the cushiest of jobs, like some desk job, like you're just stamping papers or like just like watching some room or something stupid.
Now let me
it's
ask
always super easy.
Watching The Room all day? That sounds horrible.
Tommy Wiseau is very happy that he's getting that ad revenue.
It was just an example, but yeah.
Let me ask you this then. So let's say BTS were to go into the military, right? And they get these like cushy jobs. Couldn't they technically, because they have like easy jobs and they don't necessarily have to be like deployed anywhere, couldn't they still technically also do their music career as well?
No, because they're not allowed to like leave the base. Or whatever like their job is. Yeah.
You get enlisted, Will, and you are a grunt.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean they'd still go through basic training, but after that's over, then they get some kind of job. Now, normal like everyday Korean citizens would be any kind of job. It could be like you're like a janitor or like you work IT because you do like computer skills or something, like you have computer skills or something. So, but yes. I mean, but K-pop idols have nothing really to offer. They just sing for a living. You know what I mean?
So, all right. So I guess I want to kind of move away. I don't want this to be like the BTS question and answer hour.
Sure.
Even though that'll probably get us, a lot of, ratings in the YouTube algorithm or whatever.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to like finish up talking about
sure.
like the third and fourth generation, and I'll actually lump them together because they're not that different.
Okay.
So the third generation started, I want to say like 2014, 2015, that kind of thing, and that went up until like I want to say like 2019, and then the fourth generation is from there up until right now. So, like, third and fourth generation, like, the fan culture, I mean, as you probably know, social media is out there, and it's just, like, fan wars are, like, really bad. It's just, like, embarrassing how bad it is.
Is it console? I assume it's beyond console wars level of cringe, yeah.
I imagine it's probably at, like, Glee levels of fan wars.
It's on the level of, you should be a fan of BTS or I will kill you. It's like
Glee
shit
level.
like that. Yeah, it's
All
really
right.
bad.
So,
So like cancel culture is a big thing. They love to like see like if there's anything wrong with a music video. Like let's say, so this is just an example. This didn't happen, but let's say like a K-pop idol wore like an Indian dress, like the headdress thing, like with the feathers and all that shit. Twitter would absolutely destroy them and send mass emails to their agency to be like, they need to be better and to respect the culture and stuff like that.
Well, that's Twitter for you.
Yeah, well, it's spilling into my world, which really sucks. I hate looking at shit like that, So, all right, so music style. It's going to be hard to explain what this is because I think that there's only really one style. And I'm only talking about like girl groups because I don't really follow boy groups all that much, just to kind of preface this. But there's a music style now that's called girl crush. Now, what girl crush is it's kind of like Beyonce's music, like a powerful woman. Like I'm independent and I, can take control of my life. It's
so a girl who's crushing it.
Yes. So like a girl that like other girls would be like, oh, she's so powerful and stuff like that. And I think that feeds into the whole parasocial relationship stuff.
Oh God, is it girl boss music?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I'm done. Goodbye.
Oh, Dave.
Dave, what do you mean by girl boss music?
Are you familiar with the 3 Gs, Tino?
Nope.
Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss.
Oh.
It is a stereotype of a type of women's empowerment that comes from as a form of what I can only describe as "fuck you, got mine."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The only girl boss I need in K-pop is Boa Kwan because yes, queen.
Boa still makes music. You know that?
I know. Yeah, I know. I know she does. So yes, queen.
She's been in the business for 22 years.
Yeah, she's been here since 2000, and I'm like, I've been here for the whole thing. Like, yes, queen.
Yeah. She's been around since the beginning. I mean, she debuted at 13, and they shipped her off to Japan at 13. That was super weird.
Get out of here, kid!
I mean,
get out of here! Go break through the barrier.
Wow,
that's a little fucked up.
Like, go get her!
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot fucked up.
All right,
I was trying not to say
Ghostbusters,
that,
I
but
heard
you're
that
right.
one.
No, this is not a little fucked up. It's just fucked up.
Yep.
You just find some 13-year-old wandering around Tokyo. What are you doing here? I don't know. Somebody in Seoul told me I had to come over here.
She had to learn Japanese in like a year. So she went over there. It's like, and she was like, "Oh, what the she was?
Watashi wa fucking hell."
Watashi wa
Toyota Suzuki Banyo?
No, wait, I got one. Watashi, what the fuck is going on?
All right, so moving on to the music style. So dancing is, in my opinion, gotten a lot lazier. Like it's kind of like the dance moves aren't as complex anymore. And I don't know if that's just because they don't have the talent to like make these choreographies anymore. But yeah, it's not great. Same goes for music composition, because I alluded to this earlier, but I really think that like the quality of music has gone down over the years to the point where like now it's almost unlistenable. When a new album comes out and I listen to it, I'm like, and then I just close it out.
Damn.
Do you think that that's because they're running them ragged on these schedules and they can't actually they don't have the time to actually be creative?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. And I think that they don't really employ Korean producers anymore. A lot of it is outsourced to like Europe, like Sweden and shit like that.
Oh, wow. They stopped getting Korean songwriters and stuff. Damn.
Yeah, they're still there, but it's a little less prevalent than it used to be. A lot of it is outsourced now.
God damn.
Yeah.
Find a songwriting BPO, I guess.
Yeah. So last thing is fashion, and it's just all over the place, man. Like it's just really weird. Like they have like super strange costumes now, like stuff that you would see at like a fashion week in Paris, like weird stuff like that.
Oh,
now.
So
no.
stuff nobody actually wears.
Yeah, that's not like supposed to be worn except for that show, and that's it.
Yeah, you gotta put the duct tape trash bag with the little feather. Go ahead, go nuts.
Yeah, it's not great. I don't know. It's just really weird.
Like, that's
So
not
anyway,
clothes for people.
Yeah. So anyway, that's basically my presentation. So like, I just wanted to close out with like, where do we go from here? Like, what's the future of K-pop? I really think that it's just going to be completely unlistenable garbage over the next couple of years.
So-
to the point where I don't even know if I'll keep keeping up with it. I don't know.
So I guess a few questions in that regard. I know you used to listen to J-pop a lot before switching over to K-pop. Is this something where you see yourself kind of making the jump back to J-pop?
No, J-pop is even worse than K-pop.
Really?
Yeah.
So-
yeah.
Oh,
It's
J-pop
bad.
got Oh no, J-pop got creepy.
How so?
Yeah, and you know what it is? AKB48 got destroyed. Like they're like in the gutter right now.
Wait,
and
what
it's because of COVID. Do you know AKB48?
AKB48. Hold on, let me see if I do. I know there's like a group of like 48 members or something.
Yeah.
Well,
but
it's a lot more. Well, it's a lot more than that now. That number is
Oh.
just a concept now. There's a lot more now. But yes, it's this. If I could just explain real quick what AKB48 is, the
Sure,
model
go
of
ahead.
AKB48 is their model was idols that you can meet. So they have weekly concerts in their own performance halls. So there's one in Akihabara, there's one in Fukuoka, there's one in Osaka, Kyoto, like basically all the major cities. They have one.
Basically, idol theater troupe.
Yeah, it's an idol theater troupe. So like every I think it's Thursday they perform, and I think there's one on Saturday too. They do performances, and they're like small venues too. Kind of like, think of like the TLA. If you've ever been to the TLA,
Oh, yeah, Black Box
it's not
theaters.
big.
Yeah, Black
Yeah,
Box
it's
theater.
not. It's not that big. So it's got a very intimate atmosphere to it. You know, even if you're in the back, you're close enough to be able to see them. So that's kind of their model. They do a lot of handshake events where you can meet them. You shake their hand. You can like talk to them for like a little bit, and then you leave. So yeah, that's basically their model. Now you can imagine that COVID absolutely destroyed that business model. They can't do their shows. They can't meet people. They can't really do anything other than release music. And the only way they sell music is for people to buy tickets to be able to get into their handshake events. So that's why they buy like 20 albums, 50 albums, like that kind of thing. And because there was no more incentive to do that, their sales tanked. So it was like a triple whammy of not being able to make any money. So yeah, AKB48 is like really fucked up right now.
So why didn't they switch to like live streaming events where you could like talk to them through live streaming?
I don't think Japan ever got into that, although K-pop got really heavy into that during COVID. They sold all those like online meet and greets where they would like sign an album in front of you, like on the call, and then they would talk to you while they're doing it, and then you would get that album in the mail later.
Yeah, like Japan didn't really breach that until like VTubers, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So let me ask, to some extent, like over the years that K-pop has been like becoming the juggernaut of a music industry that it is today. Like, is there something where, if you're a fan of K-pop, where I know like it's kind of hard to describe, but the best way for me to describe it is like I know like in the '90s when I was growing up and listening to different bands and everything, it's like if you were a fan of like a band like Blink-182, for example, it's like easy to say like, oh, I like their songs like Carousel or All the Small Things, but like, you know, anyone could listen to those because those were the hits and those were the ones most likely to be played on the radio. Whereas like if you listen to songs like Degenerate or Fentools, or like, it was like, oh wow, you run deep with Blink and that kind of stuff. And I know like there was even a thing like, I think at one of their live shows they made like a reference of like you know, this next song is for anyone who knew us before our album Enema of the State, which is when they really got big.
Right.
Or I mean, they were kind of big before then, but that was when like people really started to notice them. Is there anything like that in K-pop where it's like, you know, like you have cred for knowing like the more obscure stuff in the genre? Or is it just like, you know, get on the bandwagon that is this like endless juggernaut of like BTS and other popular groups?
Yes, I would say yes, and it's I think it's because of the way that K-pop is marketed. So when they market a new album, their main performance when they go on a show or when they do any kind of promotions is their title track. So normally there will be only one title track on an album, and albums range in amount of songs from only 1 or 2. There could be 5. Or there could be a full album where it's like 10 to 12. But the majority of the time, they're releasing an EP. So not that many songs, but there'll be one title track. And that'll be the one they promote. That'll be the one that has the choreography. And that'll be the one that's played on the radio. So for people to know their B-sides, which is what we call in our industry, and I think like Japan does this too, their B-sides, that's just like the album songs that aren't the title track. If you know those, then you probably are a pretty big fan of them. I mean, I got to be honest, I don't really listen to B-sides all that much, especially for the groups that I don't care that much about. I'll mostly listen to the title track, and if I like it, then maybe I'll jump into the album. But if I don't, then I'm not even going to bother. And it's just too much. It's too much because, like, in the K-pop industry, albums release literally every week. Like, it's either Monday, Wednesday, or Friday.
All right.
I have seen some Thursdays, but that's like the general release schedule.
But if I mean, I guess all that aside, I mean, to what extent then, you know, if it's all about like following like the popular bands, like I know you mentioned earlier, like, you know, it was generally like a 7-year kind of contract life. And was that just like an arbitrary number they picked, or was that due to like, okay, like if I sign a group and they get big in like 2008 and I have them for 7 years, right? I can expect them to be popular until 2015, by which point there's so many other new groups out that my group's not really going to be popular anymore. Is that kind of why they do it like that?
Yeah, I think they probably did some market research. I don't know this for a fact, but just to give an example, there's a group called Cosmic Girls. They're actually from a pretty big label, but they didn't get big until 4 years after their debut. So they went, I think it was like 1,090 something days that they went without ever winning a music show. And when you win a music show, generally you start getting more opportunities like commercials, variety show appearances, and that gives you more exposure and the possibility of more fans. So once you like win a music show, that's when you kind of start gaining momentum and really getting to the point where you're popular and really making a profit for your agency. So that's 4 years out of 7. So they're banking on having 3 years of profitability,
right?
Which I guess for them is worth it. But really, I don't know. They probably did market research and came to that conclusion.
Right.
I assumed it was just some sort of ageist and slightly misogynistic BS. Like, oh yeah, you're not adorable by 25 anymore. Fuck off or something. Like,
Yeah, this is going to be shocking to you guys, but the average debut age now is 14.
And I'm out. Goodbye.
Wow,
You're
dude.
not kid by 21 anymore. Get the fuck out.
Oh, wow.
Now, not every member is that young, but they will almost always, at least now, up to like last year, they'll have a 14-year-old. That's their youngest member. Now, you got to imagine the amount of work that they have to do all the time.
Rest. The kid has to go to school.
Yeah, they still go to school.
No, they know they're earning money.
No, they still go to school.
Fair enough.
They go. I mean, it's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure to like have like an ice cube for lunch to stay thin. Like it's like weird. It's a lot for a 14-year-old, you know.
It's a lot for anybody.
So
That
I
sounds like
have
a great
to
way
ask
to ruin
the
a
dark-
person.
So I have to ask the dark question now. What's the attrition? What is the attrition rate?
What do you mean?
Not just people who go and say, fuck this, I quit, but people who have... You mentioned suicides at the start of this.
So, to my knowledge, there have been 1, 2, 4 suicides since K-pop has been a thing, to my knowledge. So...
It's actually less than I would have expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it was the member of SHINee, there was Sully, who was in FX, there was Guhara, which was the girl that was harassed by the boyfriend, and shit, there's one more. Oh wait, he never died, but he tried to kill himself. That was Top from Big Bang. He was that's a boy group.
God.
So yeah. Well, you know what it was? He got caught with marijuana, and they're pretty strict about that in Korea. You get like pretty hefty fines and possible jail time for marijuana. And because of that, he was like, I'm never recovering from this. So he tried to take his life. So,
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
They have to be perfect or else, yeah.
Yep.
It's fucked up. It is.
Yeah.
It is-
I mean, I got to be honest, K-pop is a very dark industry with things that I didn't even really want to bring up in this. I mean, talking about suicide was already bad enough for me, but just the amount of like shit that they have to go through and the amount of harassment that they get from small agencies, because they're a small company, they're not making a lot of money, so they expect a lot from their intellectual property. I know it's fucked up to say that, but it is what it is. And it's when I think about it, I try not to think about it. That's really the deal. I mean, I've, you know, it's something that I just don't like to think about. That's all.
It just sounds really kind of like I don't even know. There's a much darker side to this than, you know, I figured I'd be hearing about. Like, I figured, like, you know, the worst thing that I was hearing about, like, a lot of this stuff was, and not necessarily K-pop, but like that idol in Japan who, like, she got caught dating someone and then she got kicked out of her like J-pop group. And I thought like maybe I'd hear some shit like that, but you know.
Well, that happened in K-pop. So do you guys know Hyuna? She was in the Psy video for Gangnam Style. She was the girl. If you ever watched the video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time. I'm responsible for about 100 million of those views.
He is. He really is.
So it came out that she was dating some other guy that was in the same agency, and her agency, Cube Entertainment, found out about it and kicked both of them out.
Wow.
So now she is under Psy's label. He has his own label now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So props to him.
Yeah,
that
good
kinda,
man Psy.
Yeah. Well, now they both have their own musical freedom, because Psy has so much money and he doesn't care about the K-pop industry's strict rules. He just wants to make good music. So
Get popular,
they
be a
have all the
badass.
freedom. They have all the freedom in the world, and I think their music is better because of it.
So that leads me into I have 3 questions. The
Sure.
first one was how does Gangnam Style fit into all this? Because like, which generation was it? And like, Gangnam Style was the entire reason that I even found out that K-pop exists. I was just
so
like, wait, what's this video that everybody on the planet has apparently watched 10 times?
Yeah, so Psy's actually been a musician for a long time. He did go to jail for a few years for marijuana possession. He came out of jail, and then he started his music career right back up, and that was when he made Psy. So if you ever like listen to the lyrics or watch the music video, it's very much a like "fuck you, Korea." That's the song's theme for sure.
He's an artist critical of the environment he's in.
So he's skewering the K-pop industry in that video. It's like a satire almost.
Yeah, it was a social commentary, not just on K-pop, but the Korea itself.
Okay. I guess my second question would be, like, I've been hearing more and more about K-pop from various different people that I never would have expected to be into K-pop.
Yes.
So my question is, what is it about K-pop that made it start to get popular in the United States? Like what kind of brought that about, do you think?
That's a question that I think is a little difficult to answer. I think there's a lot of factors that contributed to it. I do think that many artists tried to break into the U.S. industry. BoA tried to do it. Wonder Girls tried to do it. Girls' Generation tried to do it. FX tried to do it. These are just examples. It's happened many times and never really succeeded until I would say Psy came out with Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style was an absolute it was insane when that song came out. I mean, we heard it on the radio. I never really heard K-pop on the radio, period, until Psy. And I think that got a lot of people interested, or at least got the foot in the door to be like, so what's going on with this whole K-pop thing? So social media was probably another factor, just the ease of access. Because back in the 90s, when I first got into K-pop, I've been into it since like 1998, like very early on, like when I was in high school and shit. It was really hard to get anything. Like I was still on dial-up internet, downloading music videos overnight because it took that long.
Over LimeWire.
Over LimeWire, or like a direct download from like a really shady site that was in Korean that I didn't know how to read.
Yeah.
Like it was being a K-pop fan, an international K-pop fan in the very beginning was almost impossible. I mean, I was just lucky because I was so tech savvy and I could navigate the internet pretty well, but I can't imagine how hard it was for anyone who wasn't like that.
All right, so just as a point of reference for Psy and his crazy influence on K-pop and stuff. So I'm just going off of YouTube statistics.
Mm-hmm.
His Gangnam Style video has 4.4 billion views. I'm pretty sure in the first couple months that it hit American airwaves, it reached the first billion. So that video
I think it was the first video on the internet to reach 1 billion views, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, yes, it was. Despacito now is higher than that, and I believe Baby Shark is now the current number one.
Well, there's a lot that are higher than that. Like, for example, though, that song "See You Again" that was in Fast and Furious 7 and was kind of written to like honor Paul Walker's death, that came out 3 years later. That sits at 5.5 billion views, but you also got to remember that that's only like 1.1 billion views higher than Gangnam Style. And that song had a ton of marketing around it, whereas I don't know how much marketing was around Gangnam Style. That song just seemed like it came out of nowhere. Whereas,
it was one of the big viral sensations, partially because at least my experience watching that music video was like, what is going on? Yeah. I don't understand any of this. I'm going to show all my friends and have them be just as confused as me.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no. That's that. There was definitely an aspect of I don't know what's going on, but the beat is catchy and the dance looks fun.
Right.
I mean, if you look up on YouTube as well, like apparently Psy has another video from that year called Gentleman, which is at like 1.4 billion views. And then a bunch of other channels that have re-uploaded Gangnam Style, like whether it's just the song or the video, have like millions of views on their things. And it's oh yeah.
Gangnam Style success is mimetic.
Yeah, it's insane at just how well that did.
Which I find ironic considering that that was a gateway for a lot of people into the thing it was criticizing.
I actually have a story, and this is actually about a group going viral. I have two examples. You remember that "Ah Yeah" song that you were mimicking earlier, Will? Mm-hmm. So that's from a group called EXID. They were a very, very unpopular group for a few years, up to the point where they were about to disband. However, there was a fan cam is just like a performance recording of like an individual person, or it could even be the group. It's just a recording that some fan like recorded. So some fan in the audience recorded a performance of one of the members of EXID, and that video went viral in Korea. So much so that they were already done promoting the song that they performed, that they got invited back to re-promote the song, and they won their first music show because of it.
Nice.
Wow. So that's the power of viral videos in the K-pop space. Now I have one more example. There's another group called Brave Girls. They were very unpopular, like for like 6 years. And they were approaching their 7th year and were about to disband. It's kind of a similar story. But again, another viral video about them. I believe it was their song Rollin', which came out in 2017. It was an okay song. It wasn't really that popular. But it went viral because some like Korean YouTuber that's super popular shared it. And it just got like all these views. And again, they were invited back on to perform that song again on music shows, and they won for like 2 weeks straight, like every single music show, like every single one of them. They beat out anyone who was currently promoting at the time by a lot, like a whole lot, which is really rare for a girl group, because if you have like any reasonably popular boy group, they're always going to win just because that's their demographic is girls. So to see them win for 2 weeks straight is pretty remarkable.
I can imagine. I mean, K-pop just sounds like it's kind of one of those like rough businesses that like seem so intent on maintaining this like squeaky clean image to a degree. It kind of reminds me of like that story of the Golden Prancer.
What?
The Golden Prancer? You've never... It's a short story about like this kid who goes to like this toy store every day and stares at this like golden rocking horse called the Golden Prancer in the window.
I know this one.
I know the story. I got you.
So finally he gets it. And for those who are watching or listening and don't know the story, so he looks at this rocking horse every day, and it looks so shiny and beautiful, and he can't wait to play with it. And one day his parents buy it for him, and he takes it home and he hops on the Golden Prancer. And the second that he hops on this rocking horse, it crumbles because the wood inside of it was all rotten. Like the store just maintained a very shiny veneer on it. And it's just... Yeah. That's kind of the vibe I get from K-pop, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like real dark stuff that just happens behind closed doors. You only really see a very like manufactured vision of what agencies feel they should show you. It's like a North Korea like performance when you go and visit. Kind of thing.
Is there anything about like, I guess, K-pop groups that like used to be famous like once upon a time? Because I know like if you look at America, and just their pop scene, it's like if looking at the 90s, obviously there are a lot of performers from back then, like NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, who like were huge back then, but then kind of like fell off the charts. And now it's like with her recent wins in court, people are calling for Britney Spears to have another concert tour. the Backstreet Boys were in that one James Franco movie where at the end they were in heaven performing for everyone. Even though like by the time that movie came out, like it was 15 years since they were last relevant.
Oh,
So-
and the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Backstreet Boys recently had a Vegas residency.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
is there
we saw them in Vegas.
So is there something where like, you know, once your like days as a K-pop idol are over, like fans will ever like want to see you in concert again, or is that it? Once you're done, you're done.
No, I really think that people just end up moving on because here's the thing: when an idol is done, like their contract is up and they decided not to renew it, or that they just decide to go separate ways, they're pretty much done with singing for the most part. Most of them, I would say, either end up going into acting if they were popular enough in the industry while they were an idol, or they just disappear into obscurity, like get a job at Starbucks or something.
So a lot of them just get burned out.
Yeah, and you can really see why. They really get to work to death.
Yeah, they do.
So I did have I did have a third question for you, Steve.
Yes. Yes.
That is, it feels like reading between the lines a little bit that there's a heavy element of audience participation in K-pop that you wouldn't necessarily get with like an American analog. So like, can you just kind of explain like how audiences are more involved or like how it's more participatory? Because that might explain why it gets so wildly popular with some people.
Yeah, so I think the current fan structure now, because of the rise of social media, is very collaborative in nature. So the groups now have the ability to release content at any point in time. They don't need to wait for some release schedule or anything like that. They can, post an image or record like a live stream. They do live streams fairly often. And, the fans can watch it for free and they can even chat with them. I mean, it depending on like how big they are, your message might be seen, it might not. It's like the whole Twitch thing. If you have like 10K people watching, you're not going to be able to like reach them.
Sure.
But I think like,
so you're gonna have to rely on super chats.
Yeah. I think fandoms now sort of rely on staying in these camps where they like support each other and they support the group either by doing group orders of buying albums, because shipping is actually very expensive. So when you buy in bulk, you actually save money. So fan groups will like make like a group order where they'll buy like 50 albums and then distribute them among the fans because shipping was cheaper instead of just buying it on your own by yourself. So it's just like little stuff like that I think helps them stay connected with their artists. Same for like watching their variety shows, their live streams, liking all their photos on Instagram and, stuff like that. I think that's really like the dynamic of what fandom is now. It was kind of different back in the day just because the internet wasn't as prevalent.
Right. So this is like people might have like for example, a BTS club or something where they're getting together and watching live streams or something.
Yeah. The stuff like that does exist, and the artists themselves have their own. Like you saying
that groups were buying in bulk made me think of that.
Yeah, and groups have their own fan clubs themselves, like official fan clubs, where you can join either for free or you can pay money and like you'll get like a special gift or something, like a membership card or like a plushie or like a fan magazine or like whatever like the agency decides to come up with as like a thank you for like giving money. And like if you're in this fan club, you get access to like exclusive photos or exclusive videos and updates and stuff like that.
So basically, the industry incentivizes having groups having very active fan communities.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, the parasocial thing is like really, really prevalent in K-pop now. Everyone feels like they're like connected to the group or their favorite member in some way because either they buy their album or they like all their photos or like they just show supports by retweeting something, stuff like that.
Sure. Okay.
Parasocial relationships, they'll fucking get you.
You know, that's and it's so weird to think like how quickly you could form a parasocial relationship. Like, holy Jesus, like just getting the idea that you think you know someone. Like, oh, I listen to this person on the radio every day. Wow, I get them, man.
They're literally me.
Well, I mean, it's easy to see why that happens because, you know, it's all of the same, you know, visual and auditory stimuli is there that you would have if you were actually talking to a real person who was there. The difference is, you know, you can't really talk back to them. So like, it's easy to see how that would trick your brain into thinking, oh, hey, I know this person because I spend all this time with them.
Yeah, right.
There are certain YouTubers who I will watch, whether they're, you know, gaming or news commentary or whatever, and sometimes I have to remind myself, wait, I don't actually know this person. So
and
no.
I mean,
and the fact that I have to remind myself kind of catches me off guard. I'm like, whoa, wait a second, hang on a second, why am I thinking this way?
And agencies really prey on this whole thing because you got to remember that K-pop's primary demographic is children. I just have to be honest. I know that it's weird, like a 37-year-old man talking about K-pop for like an hour and 45 minutes. But when their demographic,
when you put it that way,
when their primary demographic is like 13-year-old girls. But I mean, it's just like really easy to, you know, trick kids into thinking that they really know their idol, and they'll spend their daddy's money on, you know, goods and albums and stuff like that, you know.
Well, I mean, this really isn't that different from, like, you know, all of the teeny boppers that I knew back in middle school who were in love with Aaron Carter or whoever was popular at the time, you know.
Sure, but I just think it's easier to do it now.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to do it. But I'm saying the phenomena has kind of always existed for as long as, you know, mass market celebrity status has been a thing.
Why do people like care about celebrities' personal lives and stuff like that? You know, it's like the same thing.
Yeah,
because we are all voyeuristic monsters.
I guess so.
Don't you just love the human condition?
Anyway, that was my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it and had fun.
I had fun.
Yeah,
I found it very interesting.
I have a question.
Thank you. Yes.
Can I form a parasocial relationship with the people I'm on the podcast with?
Well, no, because we actually meet each other in real life.
Jesus.
Why do we know each other in real life, too? I'm dating you. You live with me.
You can't prove that.
Dave,
I can hear the feedback loop between your microphones.
You
because
want
you're
me
in
to
the same
prove
apartment.
that?
Dave.
You want me to prove that?
Dave, if Vicky needs to form a parasocial relationship with you while she's living with you, that just speaks to how much you neglect her. Like you're neglecting all of us right now.
Wow.
I can't wait till he sees it. Yeah.
Will's talking mad shit.
I really am.
I hear you, asshole.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get there, buddy?
What is happening? Dave can teleport.
He got here in like 3 seconds.
That felt way too long.
All right, Dave.
It sounded like it felt like he checked the fridge first before he went in the room. Like it took way too long.
No, he's like, he had to breathe before he came in here to deal with my shit. He's like, I need to collect myself.
Well, so
Dave,
Vicky,
did you find any good snacks in the fridge on your way to Vicky's room?
Oh yeah, no, there's all mac and cheese in there that I made yesterday. Anyway,
so Vicky,
you
Mac
some?
and cheese.
No.
Vicky, in
You took
response
it
to
on the lunch today.
Vicky, in response to what you said about a minute ago or so, even if the only way you knew us was on this podcast and we had never met in real life, this still wouldn't be a parasocial relationship because it's not one way. This is two way. You're communicating with us, and we can communicate back with you. So that means that it's like a parasocial relationship is only parasocial because you know them, but they don't know you.
Oh, literal.
Oh yeah, no,
Tino.
I was just being a dickhead.
Okay.
Oh, literal.
We know.
I think on that joke, on literal Tino, maybe we should call it.
Should we?
Okay.
And don't lie to me or I'll know.
No.
I don't know. I don't know who here has work in the morning.
I do.
How
If
I don't have to raise my
Tomorrow.
hand this time around.
Yeah.
I am firmly in a transition.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Bye.
No!